Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Mary. Welcome to my home in Houston, Texas. Come in, let me show you around.
This holiday season, get ready to unwrap the most magnificent holiday homes with Homeworthy's 25 Days of Christmas. For the month of December, we'll take you inside the most heartwarming houses, decked out for the holidays in true festive fashion. From twinkling lights and elegantly trimmed trees to sparkling ornaments and cozy holiday charm, these homes capture the warmth, wonder, and beauty that make this season so special. So join us as Homeworthy celebrates 25 Days of Christmas. The magic starts now.
Raise your glass. Cheers! Merry Christmas! Happy holidays!
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name is Mary Patton and I'm an interior designer. We are in Houston, Texas at my home, located in Old Braeswood. It's a mid-century modern house that was designed by Paul Laszlo in 1956. It's a really cool small piece of history on a large lot. So I have loved design since I was 3 years old and thought probably from that age that I was going to grow up to be a fashion designer, and I was really working towards that goal. So I studied art in college, and then after college, I went to fashion school in New York, worked in fashion. I had a handbag line for a while. So after I had my daughter, I did a shift and started doing small interior projects for friends. I started out making pillows. 10 years later, it's evolved into what it is now. So, I took the art and fashion background as a foundation, and then I've learned and grown from that. So I found a way to kind of really have a creative career that I really love and enjoy. So I'm doing what I knew I would do as a little kid. It's just kind of in a slightly different flavor now. Welcome to my entryway. This is the first space that you see when you enter through the front door. This was originally the entrance to the kitchen, and when I renovated the house, I made the design choice to close this wall off and do a fun punchy wallpaper accent wall. This is our first of 4 trees, and the theme for this tree this year is animals. And then I put together all of my animal ornaments, so it's like a little wild zoo. Pulled from the ornaments, kind of the consistent color through a lot of them is black, so I thought that it would be cool to do black ribbons to kind of pull that out and make it pop, and then added in some green and pink and a black and white stripe to kind of tie it all together. Okay, then if you follow me this way, this is kind of our landing spot in the entryway normally. And I have this Buddha that I've had forever, and he changes with the season with different accessories. So he's now in a little holiday winter wonderland. And then I tied in the same color ribbon theme that I did from the tree. My personal style it's kind of a range. I would say that it's very feminine and also mixing in things that are unique. I love vintage one-of-a-kind pieces. I love fabric, I love color. I do think that it's very important to anchor a space with at least one antique or vintage piece. Now let me show you the living room. Follow me. Welcome to the living room. First, I want to just explain how I created the living room. So this area was a wall with a small swinging door to access the kitchen from this space. And so during the construction, I decided to take that wall down. This was really the only major layout change I did with the house, to kind of open up this area so it's sort of one big room, and then broke this living space up into 2 seating areas and a dining room. So this is kind of living space number 1, where our main family tree is this year. Something that's also really cool about this house is that the ceiling heights are different, and that in this area the ceiling is really tall, so I'm able to get a really tall tree in. I decided to use our kind of traditional family ornaments on this tree this year, and then pulled a royal blue color that was kind of consistent throughout the ornaments and made a lot of bows to go with that. I made an attempt this year to sort of declutter and go slightly more minimal. So I have a few of my most treasured accessories on the piano. I've got this little music box, Angels, that I've had for forever that I got at a vintage store 15 years ago. These two Santas that I've had, I couldn't tell you even where I got them. They're so old. I got this nativity scene last year in Santa Fe, and the artist is the grandson of a very kind of famous sculptor that came up with sort of this look a long time ago, and I love it. Then, so on the tree, I've got a large collection of Christopher Radko Santas that I've been collecting for a long time. In 2019, I think they went on sale, and so my mother bought me a lot of ornaments that say 2019, which is also interesting because that was the year before the COVID pandemic and everyone's life changed. So it's a nod to the before time. Last year, I had a completely pink tree, so we have a few trickle effect ornaments from that sprinkled in, but I did decide to store a lot of those this year. Okay, so the furniture in this area is a mix of old and new. The velvet sofas from Roche Bobois, and these French club chairs, they're mid-century modern, or they're 1950s French club chairs. This sofa I did order when we were renovating the house to go exactly in this space. I decided to pull the tan color from the club chairs and the piping to kind of tie everything together. The coffee table is acrylic and glass. It's vintage, and the rug is from India, and it's newish. Also, a thing with Christmas decor is that I move my furniture around to accommodate the trees. So my plants over there normally go on that wall. The poofs that I have under the piano are Cisco, and I've had them a long time, but they're really great when you have parties because people can kind of lounge and they're easy to move around. In the second living space, this sofa is also from Roche Bobois that I purchased for this project, for this renovation. It's probably the nicest piece I own, and my 110-pound Bernedoodle has made it her dog bed. So I can say that investing in a really nice sofa does hold up if your dog decides that that's where it's going to hang out all day, every day. These chairs I've had forever, and when we moved and I did this renovation, I recovered them in this Schumacher velvet fabric to kind of tie in throughout the whole house, kind of a pink and green color scheme. Pink and green are my favorite colors, and for this project, I really leaned into that. I pulled a huge inspiration for me was the blush terrazzo tile. So that kind of blush theme is running throughout the house. I do also think that blush is a really nice neutral, and that you can mix it with anything. And so, I think red is not something you would typically think to add to a pink and green color scheme, but at Christmas time, it's a really, fun way to bring in that traditional color. And I think it works. The third space, or the third area I've broken this large space up into, is the dining room. So I had this Murano chandelier made when I went during the renovation process, and really have used it as an anchor space for the dining room. So kind of defines where we are, and then have mixed in some really feminine French stuff with a modern industrial table with, this entire space is kind of a weird eclectic mix of things, but I love so much each individual piece. And I really do believe that if selections really resonate with you, that they will work together. It just somehow, through the magic of creativity, that somehow this all makes sense and works. Yeah, so I picked the red candlesticks just because red is sort of the most obvious choice for Christmas decor, but again, not really used a lot in my house. But like with the royal blue that you can see a lot in the ornaments, the Santas have a lot of red. So I thought that would be just a fun little nod. And I do love these candles. You can get them on Amazon. Just Google red beeswax, and they don't smell, they don't smoke, they don't drip. They're great. And I also feel very strongly about candlelight when you're eating dinner. So I got these chairs at a vintage store in Palm Beach. They were in my last house, my dining room. And when we moved to this one, I recovered it in this fun blush and tan stripe. The fabric's from a vendor in England. I think it's so cool. The side chairs are from Design Within Reach. So I really like to mix new with vintage. I think you can figure out a way for it to all make sense. The wood is the same tone, which also ties it together, but I just really responded to those chairs and thought that they would work, and I think that they do. So this buffet I got from a friend of mine who's a French antique dealer, and I was shopping for another client for something, and she had it, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. Not something I think that you would immediately think to put in a mid-century modern house, but I also, since I've lived here for 3 years now, I'm just kind of not trying to force having everything be super modern and just filling the house with stuff that I really like. We don't have a ton of storage in this house too, and it's been a great, like all my daughter's art supplies are in here, so it has double duty. These lamps I got from a vendor in Round Top a few years ago, and I love them so much. They are stone, and the light bulb, you access the light bulb under, because when I first saw them, I was like, how do you change the light bulb on this? But it's the inside of the lamp is hollow, which is how it's illuminated. The piece of art over this buffet, my husband and I found on a trip in San Miguel in Mexico at just a small art gallery, and we carried it back to Texas. I got these Christmas swans at Dallas Market. If you have not been there, there's a huge, incredible Christmas warehouse, which is slightly overwhelming. I went a few years ago, and these made it back into the rotation this year. I think they're really cute. This piece of art my husband got in Scotland on a business trip, and I found this rattan bar cart at a flea market, I don't know, probably 10 years ago, and it's moved to a lot of different places. Right now it's a place to put plants on, but it's easily movable during a dinner party or if we need the space. This piece of art on this wall is by Hunt Slonim. My friend Laura Rathy owns several galleries in Houston, and she represents him. So I got this from her a few years ago. The bust on this wall belonged to my husband's grandfather, as did this piece of art from Japan. He spent a lot of time there. So this is just like a cool family piece from his side of the family. I'm not sure who it is, but he also, like the Buddha in the entryway, has different accessories different times of the year. Okay, so I love the holidays and tend to go a little bit overboard. We started out when my husband and I got married with one big tree, and then over the years it's evolved into multiple rooms. I have a tree in my entryway that's animal themed this year, one in our living room, one in our TV room, and then I do a tree for my 11-year-old daughter each year. I come up with a different theme and color scheme to kind of mix up what I already have invested in, and then I add to it each year. This year we went really crazy with lots of ribbon, which you'll see shortly. Yes, we have a lot of different collections that we mix and match and change where they go, and it's just fun to kind of be creative and be inventive each year. Okay, so the original access point from the living space to the kitchen was right here. So as I told you earlier, this wall came down in the renovation, and I used just the space as kind of a blank canvas of how I wanted to lay this out. I really, really like to cook, and so a big goal or dream of mine was to have 4 ovens, which I do, and I'm very excited and grateful about. So another huge source of inspiration for the kitchen for me was this pink marble. It's called Rosa Statuario, and I bought all of it. I had found it at the stone vendor I work with and thought, I want to use this for a project. And then once I found this house and started working on this, knew that this was going to be incredible in the kitchen. So it pulls the same colors, again, from the terrazzo, which was my initial source of inspiration for the color palette for this project, and decided to use all of it as much as I could. The only reason why I didn't wrap the vent hood in it is because we ran out. So carried it up the walls. I kept all of the existing windows in the house, so that was a little bit of a design challenge of how to work around that and to have the space feel balanced and symmetrical, even though it's really not. This house is a lot of color, and So to be able to layer so many colors, I made the design choice of doing white walls and white cabinets throughout most of the house. So I have 2 Shih Tzus and a Bernedoodle. And so it's also kind of where do they go? And again, with limited space, my problem solving was this space right here was the laundry room. And I added Dutch doors, and that's where my little dogs go when we're not home or at night. So that's their little room. And then if we're having a party or if I'm being recorded to talk about my house, I can close it off and it looks super clean. Then this is the bar space. So the access point to the kitchen originally was where that wall is, where I've got the bulletin board now. And so this is like a fun kind of closed off bar space for when we have parties. But I also, after we got the second larger dog, added another Dutch door here. So if she needs to go somewhere, that's where she goes and she can't get out. I had this made for my husband like 5 years ago as a present. It's moved a couple houses with us, but you know, I think neon signs are a fun gift and also a way to kind of personalize things. Like they can lean cheesy, but you know, I think it's just a fun other light source and you can get creative. One other thing I wanted to talk about is that I hate can lighting. I hate overhead lighting. In a perfect world, you only have lamps and chandeliers on dimmers. So in this house, I took out 99% of the can lights, which makes me really happy. There's a few in the kitchen. But at nighttime, just having, you know, these lamps turned on, the neon sign turned on, it creates like a really cool mood. Okay, and now welcome to our TV room. When I purchased the house, this was actually an indoor-outdoor patio sunroom, and where the fireplace was actually an charcoal grill. So during the renovation, we removed that, transformed it to a fireplace, and then really closed off the space to be a fully indoor room. This was the kind of a swinging door exit to outside, and since I closed the back door off in the kitchen, this is now our functioning back door. So this room has a really cool mix of the high and low ceiling. So you still get kind of the breeziness from the main space, but then it also feels more intimate and cozier. This is probably where we spend 80% of our time. The sectional I have it was from my last house. It's Gus Modern. And during the renovation and kind of my pink and green explosion, I reupholstered it in a Schumacher high performance velvet, which is, you know, done really well. So that's definitely a hot tip is if you have furniture that you like, but you don't want to get new stuff, reupholstering is really fun. These 2 slipper chairs I found in Palm Beach as well. They have the original upholstery on them and I love them so much. To accommodate things that I need in the house with our fairly limited square footage, I decided to put a desk in here. So when I work from home, this is sort of my office. But I think this room has really beautiful natural light and I really enjoy spending time in here. The Christmas tree in this room kind of came about by accident. I couldn't remember. And my daughter has a pink tree in her room every year, but I got them switched, but it's fine. So we've got a very, very juvenile, joyful, blush flocked tree. And I decided to put all of my ornaments that are like food themed or food adjacent on this tree this year. And pulled kind of a color that was sort of throughout all of them was sort of a dark, warm mauve-y. So I did warm brown velvet bows and some mauve bows to kind of tie in my bow theme from the rest of the house in here. This rug is a vintage sari silk. It is held up pretty well with all of my animals. I get it cleaned probably every 3 months. The Saarinen table I've had for a long time. It was a dining table in my apartment a long time ago, and it's lived lots of different lives. It's been a nightstand in one of my houses, but I love it and I'll always have it. This lamp, I've got a pair of these lamps that aren't twins, but they're cousins, and they were made by a friend of mine, Liz Marsh, who's an incredible lighting designer. Part of my plant collection is in here. It's been moved around to accommodate the Christmas tree as well. This cactus I've had for probably 5 years and kept it alive. And a hot tip on keeping a cactus alive is to never water it. So I've stopped watering it and it is thriving. So I also really like vintage flamingos, which I guess is sort of on brand, having a pink mid-century house. So this friend I've had for a while, and then the lion came from my husband's grandfather as well. And I think it's just, funny. One of my goals when we did the renovation was to have a functioning fireplace. This one does work, but I still haven't gotten around to figuring out how. But living in Houston, Texas, it's really hot all the time. So there's maybe one day a year that we need it, but it's on my to-do list. This desk is from a line USM, which I really like. You'll see it in my bedroom too, that I've used it as nightstands in there. Again, we're pairing like a hyper modern, hyper clean lines with some other stuff that kind of doesn't seem like it would make sense, but I think all in it does. So again, in my goal to not have any overhead lighting, but still needing some light, that is a vintage mid-century pendant light that I got at an antique store in Florida. And it's sort of pretending to be a lamp. So a challenge when designing with sectionals is where to put end tables and finding like the right plug of where it can go. So hanging a chandelier or a pendant light kind of in a random spot like that can work as far as, creating some soft lamp lighting. But if you don't have a plug or floor space to do it, it's a good idea. So in my quest for more storage, I found this piece. It's a vintage rattan bamboo, mid-century. It gives a little bit of the Golden Girls vibe, but it's okay. We like them. And has a very edited collection of tchotchkes I own that's been, it's a challenge for me as kind of a maximalist to constantly be editing and taking things away. And I, change stuff all the time. So I've got a pretty big storage unit where I trade stuff, or, I also think with clients, layering really unique vintage pieces is so important. It's very hard to style a house with all new stuff. And so I've got a large collection of things that I can sell to clients or, that I've collected over the years. So this is our current situation on this shelf, but it does change a lot. Can talk about the design challenge of getting a fireplace over a charcoal grill, and when you're limited with kind of what you can do with an older house. So there's a lot of problem solving. I would also describe this house technology-wise as a dumb house, which I prefer. I enjoy the ritual every night of turning on all the lamps. So, it's very, very low tech over here. The plug on the ceiling is not my first choice, but I've gotten over it because it's, But I think, problems, I'm very pro preservation and restoration. And so when you buy an older house like this, there's just, some problems that you have to solve. And is it always the most streamlined and clean? No, but it's okay. Okay, so before we take you into her room, I decided this year to create a garland to the entrance of her room. And the saying that void drives value, that when I was a child, I have two very left brain, wonderful parents, but they're not particularly creative. And as a kid, I worked on my room and thought about it so much. And so this is kind of really more for me than her. I think she's so used to me overdoing stuff that it's just kind of second nature. And I don't know if she even cares. But so this is kind of created for my 8-year-old self. And I also really love just the part of putting it up, using your hands and being creative and thinking about colors, and all of these pieces were left over from last year. So I'm going to give Violet a really fun Christmas entrance before we go into our room. Okay, so my favorite color is pink, and I think hers is too because it has to be. I Whenever we've moved in the past, like I've always let her pick what color room she wanted, and so she was happy with this selection. And kind of my overall design vibe in here is like a pink tone on tone, which is also very much related to her tree. So this tree this year has some of the leftover blush ornaments from last year, and then I think it's really fun for kids for them to be able to keep and hang up every year the ornaments that they've made at school or things that they've been given. So this is kind of like another family tree, but things that are important and meaningful to her. She she was really pumped about decorating it and then got tired after like 5 minutes. So I pretty much did it all. She also went to the dollar store and got that red garland decorator room, which I really leaned into as part of this like red bow vibe for her. So I start working on this like in early November, and I do it on the weekends for a couple hours each day. So it's a very kind of slow meditative process that and it's the kind of thing like when it stops being fun, I stop. So just really being thoughtful and taking my time. It's just a really quiet, peaceful, creative outlet that I get to have once a year that I really, really enjoy. So the first thing I do is get all the different trees assembled and fluffed, and then kind of work in stages at each one. So I'll open up all the ornaments from the year before and kind of put them into piles or segments about what tree is going to go, what ornaments are going to go with what tree this year. A couple of years ago, I went through an aquarium phase. We had 2 fish tanks and I had an aquarium tree in the front, which all the fish ornaments have been put up for now. I'm sure they'll come back. So yeah, it's just kind of sorting through what I have and where they're going to go. Okay, last but not least, I'm going to take you to the primary bedroom. Follow me. Okay, on our way to my primary bedroom, I wanted to stop and show you the powder bath real quick. So I really think that a powder bath is a place in your house that you can make like a little expressive jewel box, that it doesn't really need to make sense with everything else you're doing, and you can really lean in and have fun with it. So to kind of balance out the Gucci wallpaper I did in the entryway, I looked and thought, what other wallpaper did they make that I could use in the powder bath? And so they have this hilarious tiger. So I wouldn't want to look at it all day, every day, but for a short time, it's really fun. And pulled from the stone in the kitchen, the grays and blacks. I also think a powder bath can be very moody, and it's not overwhelming because it's just a little part of your house. So a huge goal of mine too in this house was to save the floors. So because of that, I kept the original vanity that was here and just painted it, and then replaced the top with black marble. I also, just to kind of be different, because you can in a powder bath, did rose gold plumbing hardware and towel ring and stuff. So it's just a fun mix of other things that I've done. The pendant lights are also from Dutton Brown, which was the vendor I used for cabinet pulls in the kitchen. I've used those a few places in the house. So again, just kind of tying in sort of the overall feel in a small, fun space. Okay, now we're going to continue and I'm going to show you my room. So going back to kind of my original color palette for the house, the initial design was doing pink and green throughout. And so the color of this room is Farrow and Ball Vert de Terre, and I think it's one of the best soft greens that you can use. I've used it in many projects after this. It's a very soothing color. It almost even though it is green, it's so soft that it almost leans neutral. I think lighting is so important, especially in your bedroom. So the lighting, it's pretty dark in this room, but I love it. Again, to accommodate with our really limited storage, I have a dresser, which typically you don't really see in primary bedrooms. The bedding is a mix of Biscuit and Annie Selke, which are both really great lines. Again, to kind of balance, going back to the TV room where I have the USM desk, I've balanced that using USM nightstands. So again, a hyper kind of streamlined modern product mixed with some really soft kind of other weird things. The two lights on the nightstand are from Visual Comfort, and then the two lamps on the dresser are vintage that have been turned into lamps. So again, a balance of old and new. Again, I do feel really strongly about plants, especially in your bedroom, that they improve the air quality and just visually they're so pretty to look at. So I've found this, I was shopping for a client at one of my plant vendors, and he had in this huge money tree, and I just thought I've got to have that in my room. So it's pretty cool to wake up in the morning and look at a tree. This rug in here is a vintage Ushak mixed with the swivel chairs from Roche Bobois. So these were another part of that order from the initial renovation. I got a few pieces from them. And again, to kind of balance out throughout the house, things to keep it all consistent and cohesive. The one overhead light in here is a Murano flush mount that I got from the same vendor that did the dining room chandelier. So again, like a very kind of hyper feminine, soft lighting mixed with some contemporary pieces. So I feel that plants are so important, and you should have them in every room, especially in your bedroom. It improves the air quality and just kind of the overall energy of the space. I found this super large money tree at one of my plant vendors. I was not shopping for a tree for myself, but found it and thought, okay, that needs to come and live in my room. And then the mantle, okay, so this mantle I've had it for forever. It's old. She's lived a bunch of different places. I do like the concept of using a vintage mantle like a console table. So, I mean, this is definitely an opportunity where you could have nothing or low table under the TV, but I think it's a fun conversation piece, and I think it's really pretty. Okay, so next I'll talk about the window treatments that I decided to do in this space. The ceilings are not particularly tall, so I decided to do a ceiling mount track, which makes the room feel as tall as it can. I think it's good at nighttime if you can to have the option of having blackout. So I did a double track of this Schumacher fabric lined in blackout that I can close at nighttime, and then during the day, I think it's nice to have some light filtering unlined. So these are a white linen blend that's unlined that I kind of keep closed or open if it's pretty, but it creates a really lovely light filtering effect. And then you can also have full privacy with blackout using 2 tracks. The 3 pieces of art in here, so we've got this watercolor study by an artist named Evelyn Boren. It's actually a combination of watercolor and charcoal. I think it's really lovely and pulls, again, all of the colors, like the dark green and eggplant from the chairs are in there. The small painting over the dresser is by this artist who I'm obsessed with. Her name is Mandy Racine, and they're like French Rococo, Marie Antoinette-ish paintings. So, I mean, if you look really closely, it feels like very abstract, but if you kind of zoom out, you can tell that it's figurative. The name of the painting is Dancing in the Pavilion. I think it's so cute. And then I found this scarf. It's a vintage Gucci scarf with mushrooms on it. And to kind of, I didn't want a wallpaper in here. I think it's important for bedrooms to feel very soothing and calm, but I thought this was like a really fun nod to what I've done in the rest of the house. So had it framed with, pulling kind of the pink from the background, kind of a mauvey pink matte, and then a light natural wood frame to kind of tie in with the rest of the things I'm doing in this room. So when it comes to home, the holidays are a really special time to spend at home. Part of spending all this time doing these decorations is a reason to be home together to enjoy them. And I try to have a couple of parties to get my friends to come over, and it's just a great excuse to get together and to really try to mindfully slow down and spend time in your home.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.